Welcome to the English Matura with JB podcast. Today we're doing a deep dive into something we all know and maybe even dread a little bit, New Year's resolutions.
Right.
And we're not just going to talk about what they are. We want to get into why they so often fail and how you can use some real psychological science, specifically something called the SMART framework, to make sure your goals stick.
Exactly. To turn them from these temporary wishes into real life-changing promises.
Okay, so before we get into the science, maybe we should just define it. What exactly is a New Year's resolution?
Well, simply put, it's a promise you made to yourself, and it typically starts on January 1st. The idea is to either start doing something good or, stop doing something bad.
And the pressure is real, isn't it? I saw this survey recently, I think it was from Forbes Health, that said something like 60% of people feel pressured to set one.
Oh, absolutely. And that same survey found most people plan on setting 3 or more, which is a lot.
It is. So why do we do this to ourselves every single year? We know most of them don't work out, so what's the drive?
Well, to understand that, you have to realize this isn't some modern invention. This tradition is thousands of years old.
Really? Okay, let's unpack that. Where did it all begin?
It goes all the way back to the ancient Babylonians. They're credited with starting the whole custom. They would make these promises to their gods at the start of the new year.
Interesting. What kind of promises?
Actually, very practical things. Often it was about repaying debts or returning things they borrowed. It was about starting the year with a clean slate, financially and socially.
So not, I'm going to the gym more.
Not quite. And then you had the ancient Romans who continued the tradition. They made their promises to the god Janus.
Janus, as in January.
Exactly. January is a name for him.
Yeah.
And Janus was this fascinating god with two faces. One looked back at the past, and the other looked forward to the future.
That's a powerful symbol, the idea of reviewing the past before you commit to the future.
It is. It's all about reflection and change.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. How does that ancient idea of review and change show up in our modern traditions? Because New Year's Eve is just this massive cultural event now.
It really is. In Great Britain, you'll see huge crowds gather in places like Trafalgar Square in London. Everyone is just waiting for Big Ben to chime at midnight.
There's a real sense of community there, and in New York City, it's Times Square, hundreds of thousands of people watching that ball drop.
And that shared moment, that feeling of a fresh start, is really the key. Psychologists have a term for this. They call it the fresh start effect.
A fresh start effect.
January 1st is what we call a temporal landmark. Now, that's a great vocabulary term for you listening. A temporal landmark is just a specific point in time, like a Monday or your birthday or the new year, that sort of gives our brain permission to start over.
So it's like a psychological reset button. The calendar tells us it's a new chapter, so we feel motivated to act on our ambitions.
Precisely. And that encourages what we call aspirational behaviors, actions that reflect our desire for personal growth.
But what about the failure rate? You hear all the time that resolutions are doomed, that something like 90% of them fail.
And that number gets thrown around a lot. But here's the really important part. Studies have shown that people who actually set resolutions are 10 times more likely to change their behavior than people who don't set any goals at all.
10 times. Okay, so even with the high failure rate, trying is way better than not trying.
Much better.
So the question becomes, what's the secret of that successful minority? Is it the goal itself, or is it how they frame it?
It's almost always how the goal is structured. The biggest mistake people make is setting what we'd call an ambiguous goal.
Ambiguous, meaning it's vague, it's not clear.
Exactly. Think about goals like, I want to lose weight, or I'm going to get fit, or even, I want to be happy. They're nice thoughts, but they're wishes. They're not a map.
You can see this all the time in pop culture. I always think of the show Friends. Ross's resolution one year was to do something new every day.
Right. And that sounds fun, but it fails immediately. What's something new? Does a new brand of coffee count? It's completely subjective.
And then there was Rachel, who wanted to gossip less.
Again, good intention. But how do you measure that? How do you know if you're succeeding? It's almost impossible to track.
So these examples show us that just wanting to change isn't enough. You need a system.
You need a system, a reliable framework to turn that vague wish, like, say, get better at English, into a real actionable plan.
And that's where this scientific framework comes in. It's called SMART goals. And this is like the GPS for success.
That's a perfect analogy. It's a way to program your destination so you actually get there. So let's break down the acronym, SMART.
Okay, let's do it. S is for specific. Like you said, you don't just type somewhere warm into your GPS. You need the exact address.
Right. So instead of get better at English, a specific goal would be, I will improve my English grade from a B1 to a B2 level by the end of the school year. Now you know exactly what you're aiming for.
That's much clearer. Okay, next up is M for measurable. The idea here is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yes, you need numbers. So for our English example, you could say, I will learn 20 new vocabulary words each week, or I will read for 30 minutes in English every night. Now you can actually track your progress.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we have A for achievable. Your goal has to be something you can actually attain. You want to avoid setting these lofty or drastic goals.
Right, the old saying, biting off more than you can chew. If your goal is to become fluent in 3 new languages in 3 months, that's just not achievable. It's setting yourself up for failure, and that kills motivation.
Which leads right into R for realistic. This is where you have to be honest about your own life, your own circumstances.
Exactly. If you're a high school student with 5 tough classes and a part-time job, promising to study English for 6 hours every day probably isn't realistic.
So what's a better way?
Start smaller. Maybe a realistic goal is 20 minutes a day. You can always build up from there once the habit is formed.
Okay, and the last letter is T for timetabled. Every goal needs a deadline, a schedule.
Yes, without a deadline, a goal is just a dream that you can postpone forever. You need to schedule it, put it in your calendar. Wednesday at 7 p.m., I will practice speaking English.
Right.
Or a hard deadline, like I will pass the B2 exam by June 1st. It creates accountability.
So that's the SMART framework. It gives you the structure. But what about, the long haul? How do you keep going and beat those odds?
Okay, so a few practical tips. The first one comes from psychologist Richard Wiseman, and it's simple but powerful. Focus your energy.
Meaning?
Just pick one resolution. Don't try to change 5 things about your life at once. If you try to do too much, a failure in one area can make you give up on everything. Focus all your energy on that one important goal.
I like that. My favorite tip is the next one. Ink it to win it. The power of actually writing your goals down.
It's huge. When you write it down, it stops being a thought and becomes a plan. It's like creating the blueprints for a house.
And the numbers back this up, right?
They do. Only about 5% of people write their goals down, but that 5% has a way higher success rate. So make it visible. Put it on your computer desktop, on a note on your fridge. Somewhere you'll see it every day.
Okay, what's next? This one seems really important for mindset.
It is. You have to remember that change is a process. The habits you want to change probably took years to form. You can't expect to reverse them overnight. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
So you have to be patient with yourself, especially when you have what we call a setback or a misstep.
Exactly. Maybe you miss a week of studying because you were sick. A lot of people see that as total failure and just quit.
But you shouldn't.
Don't. A misstep is just data. It's a chance to reevaluate. Maybe your plan was too ambitious, so you adjust, and you keep going.
Another great strategy is the buddy system. Get support.
Yes. Tell a friend or a family member your goal. Having someone to check in with keeps you motivated and accountable, and the camaraderie, that sense of fellowship, makes the journey more fun.
Definitely. Okay, last tip. This is about staying motivated.
It's about mini goals and rewards. Break your big goal down. So if your goal is to get to a B2 level in a year, maybe a mini goal is to master one difficult grammar concept in 3 months.
And when you hit that mini goal,
You reward yourself.
yeah,
Doesn't have to be big. Maybe you treat yourself to a movie or a day out. These little rewards reinforce the positive habit and keep your motivation high.
So to sum it all up, we've got the history, the psychology of the fresh start, but at the end of the day, success really comes down to using a scientific method like SMART and then having practical strategies to maintain it.
That's the foundation.
So now that we've built that foundation, let's talk about taking it to the next level. What about something called a stretch goal?
Ah, that's a really interesting concept. A stretch goal is kind of like what we called a lofty resolution earlier. It's an audacious goal. That's a great word, by the way. It means bold or daring.
So a goal that really pushes you to your limits.
Exactly. Think of it like an athlete using a resistance band. If there's no resistance, you don't build any muscle. A stretch goal provides that healthy resistance. It's difficult, but it's not impossible, and it forces you to grow.
So it serves a bigger purpose than just achieving the thing itself.
Yes, the ultimate purpose of a big, audacious goal is to become a better version of yourself. Your goal should be like a guiding star, something that pulls you forward.
So here's the final thought for you, our listener. Now that you have these tools, now that you know how to build a SMART goal, what is one bold, audacious goal you will set for yourself this year?
It could be in your English proficiency, in your other studies, or somewhere else in your life.
What's that one big thing that will truly make you a better version of yourself? Use this knowledge to build your own path to that star.
I think that's the perfect question to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you feel ready to make this your most successful year yet.